Hello everyone, and welcome to Program Your Life. So what if you could permanently rewire your brain? Now your brain is working in a specific way because of how we program it. When I talk about Program Your Life, really we're talking about programming your brain and how your brain is working through the world. Because your brain creates the outer reality. You might think it's kind of different. The outer reality is here, but your brain chooses your perspective, what you focus on, how you go throughout the day, even how you're watching this video. So through the power of meditation, specifically the power of alpha and theta, we can get into daydream states, or we can get into states just before sleep. So we're either daydreaming or in theta states, and then we can start to rewire and reprogram our brain. And by doing this, we can make permanent changes and changes for the better.
Most people wait for crisis, or trauma, or disease, or diagnosis, or loss. They reach that lower denominator where they finally start paying attention to what they're thinking about. They start observing how they're acting or have acted. They start looking at their automatic emotional reactions. And when they're observing the old self, they're no longer the program. They're the consciousness observing the program, and they begin to objectify their subjective self. Now, consciousness is coming out of biology. Now, my message is, why wait? You can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy or inspiration. Right. So then, if you can have a person, then instead of reaching a lower level emotionally, the reason they feel differently is the first time they can see themselves, because they're feeling differently. They're seeing themselves through the eyes of someone else. But if you can have them be defined by a vision of the future, because we are creators and they're in an elevated emotional state, they could still look at the old self and see the old self from a different level of mind. The frontal lobe is the crowning achievement of the human being. Right. It's 40% of your entire brain. It's the symphony leader, it's the CEO, it's the creative center, it's the boss. When you're living primarily unconsciously, the rest of the brain is active and the frontal lobe is dialed way down. The moment you ask a question, or you get a creative idea, the moment you speculate possibility, the moment you ask what if, the frontal lobe, the seat of our attention, our intention, our creative center, where we speculate, where we restrain emotional reactions, where we control behaviors, where we have focused concentrations, where we demonstrate free will. The moment that center turns on, like a great symphony leader, it has connections to all other parts of the brain. And when you ask that question, the frontal lobe resources different neurological networks that's stored in your brain from things you've learned and experienced, and seamlessly pieces them together to create a new level of mind. And when that happens perfectly in tandem, and those neurons string together, you get an image or a picture in your head. That internal representation is called intention. Now you're locking on to something. The true passionate creator, the true artist then, begins to see that vision and begins to emotionally embrace the outcome. The moment they begin to emotionally embrace the outcome, their brain and body are living in the future, in the present moment, and when they're transfixing their idea on it, they begin to lay down new neurological networks to reflect that vision. Now, we all do this all the time. Right. So then once you get that vision, now you have to go through a process of bringing it to life. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. So then we've all done this. I mean, we've all been defined by a vision. And people in our life told us it was crazy, it's impossible, it'll never work. There were days you didn't feel like it, all that stuff. But instead, you were defined by that vision. And every day you reviewed that vision and you got excited about it emotionally. And you wrote down the choices you were going to make, and you wrote down the behaviors you were going to demonstrate, and the things you were going to do, and your goals that you wanted to experience and how they felt. And you kept your mind on that vision. And then you sat down and you wrote down, okay, what are the choices I'm not going to make today? What are the things I'm not going to do? What experiences am I going to stay away from? And what emotions bring me down to a lower level? Let me just get clear on who I no longer want to be. Right. And if you reviewed that every day, that distinction between the old self and the new self, there's a lot of pruning going on neurologically in the brain, a lot of sprouting going on at the same time. And sooner or later, you reach a point where you know that that thing's going to occur. I think that your mind and body all of a sudden align energetically with that vision, electromagnetically. There's a lock-in. And when you lock into it, now you don't even you don't even have to worry. You just know that it's going to happen. You have such a level of self-love and self-respect for yourself and for everybody, that you actually step back and allow it to unfold and come to you. So then think of a time in your life where you said you were going to do something and you didn't accomplish it. Well, what happened then? You had a vision, you got excited, and then you ran out of time the next day, and you didn't feel like it, and you got tired, and you got angry at someone 2 days ago, and you started putting your attention on your problems, and you had a lot of social engagements, and what we do is we settle for our past, present reality instead of that vision of the future. And there's only three things that do that to us: the conditions in our environment, the feelings and emotions in our body, and time. Every great person in history understood that they had to be defined by a vision of the future, and to change is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the conditions in your external world, to be greater than the circumstances in your life. It's also to be greater than the body as the mind. Your mind has an effect on the objective world, that mind and matter are somehow correlated. And so this birth of quantum physics came along, and this quantum physics experiments say that you cannot do a quantum physics experiment without an observer around. In other words, a mind always has to be present because it will influence the outcome. You with me? So now, that invisible field of spirit, that invisible field of information and energy, somehow you, as an individual, can influence the nature of reality with your mind. So now Einstein had a lot of trouble with this because he said, God doesn't play dice and it doesn't work like this, but his brain was wired for light. And so he had the abstraction and he was getting the download of information, understanding the field of light. And the quantum physicists were saying, well, actually there's a field of information beyond space and time, beyond light, where everything is unified. And you can take two photons that have been somehow related in a specific atom and shoot them to the opposite ends of the universe. And the moment you affect one photon at the exact same time, the other one is affected. So they were being connected or affected in a realm faster than the speed of light. In other words, it would take time if you affected one for the other one to be affected. But if they were beginning to be affected at the exact same time, they were connected in a realm beyond physical reality. Are you with me? And so when the movie What the Bleep came out, and we basically made an effort to show that your mind has an effect on reality, and that in order for you to begin to change your reality, you got to change your mind and change the way you live your life. And we wanted people to become inspired by the process of creation. Really give it a shot. And that independent of your gender, of your race, of the color of your skin, of your intellectual ability, independent of your past, independent of your age, that on some level we are all divine creators, and that these models of reality that have separated individuals have all been built on human beings living in a very limited state of mind. And so when quantum physics was born and the whole concept of reality began to unfold, people started to really challenge the nature of reality, and that concept that you are somehow connected because you are made of photons and atoms and electrons, that on some level you are an organization, a community of 70 trillion to 120 trillion cells, and all of those cells are made up of atoms and molecules and chemicals. And all of those are working in a coherent form to express yourself as a physical body. But most people don't know that they're moving in and out of the quantum field 7.8 times per second. That you're vibrating in and out of the field all the time, and every time you leave, you disappear, and when you come back, you disappear into that field of information, and you come back with information. But if you go out as the same person, you don't bring any new information back. Are you with me? And if you can begin to observe a vision that represents a future, and you can hold steadfast to that vision, and you can see that vision clearly in your mind, and every day you understand where you place your attention is where you place your energy, then you would be investing your energy into the future. And the image that you see could literally be the template.
Welcome back, everyone. So hopefully you see you have the power to reprogram your brain. You have the power to make amazing things happen, all through meditation. Doing this meditation will allow you to rework what's been going on in your brain and change your perspective. Create that new future. Create that new life.
For trillions and trillions of atoms to organize into patterns of information called an event in your life. And so, but it's not enough to just have a clear intention, because clear intentions have very little effect on the nature of reality. That the driving force that couples the co-maiden, the handmaiden to all of that is an elevated emotion. And so when you combine that clear intention with an elevated emotion, it is the elevated emotion that begins to amplify the field around your body. And in that moment, you become more energy and less matter. And if you understand then that the emotion then is the handmaiden to the creative process, that means that you would have to feel whole before your healing. That would mean that you would have to feel abundance before your wealth. That means you would have to feel awe before the mystical moment. That would mean you'd have to feel love before your new relationship. That would mean you'd have to feel empowered before your success. And that means then when we do this properly, then we're no longer functioning as materialists. We are literally function as quantum minds. And only when you're truly conscious and truly aware are you beginning to affect the nature of reality.
Hello everyone, and welcome back. So it really is possible to reprogram and rewire your brain. You might think, oh no, that seems crazy. I don't know if I could ever do that. But really, it's just taking some time to meditate in a relaxed state, preferably daydreaming, or right before you're about to go to bed. And hold those intentions. Hold that new you. Hold that vision of your new self, whatever that vision is. If you're sick, you're holding a new vision of you being healthy. If you're in poverty, holding a new vision of that abundance. If you want an amazing relationship, holding a vision of that. And then that allows your brain to rewire and rework itself. By doing this, making it a habit, it eventually changes that permanently. We can change the way our brain is wired permanently, and that's an amazing thing that we have the capability of. And then suddenly, just by doing that, we change the external world. That's how powerful that is. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.